All right, welcome. Welcome to our third podcast for Rocket Screens. I think we've got a great topic today. I've got with me Kay Batista. Kay, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hi, everyone. This is Kay, the commander's assistant, and I'm always here to help.
You're doing a great job. I appreciate you every day. And Nicholas Paget, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Nick Paget. I'm the director of product development for RocketScreens. Been doing software development about a decade now, with history and background and integrations with Salesforce, with Oracle products, with all kinds of platforms. So here to give you a walkthrough.
Awesome. And I'm Scott Pressler. I'm your commander at Rocket Screens. So Rocket Screens is a venture started by our company, US Analytics. US Analytics is a 21-year-old consulting services firm building out some of the most advanced reporting systems. Now a lot of cloud technologies from Oracle and OneStream and various other large providers, primarily to the office of the CFO, but also to various reporting managers. And that led us to recognition and understanding of the market. And hence we built out the Rocket Screens product to solve some of the challenges that we see every day in our corporate clients. And today we are going to show off, I guess, the brand new integration that we have between Rocket Screens and Salesforce, the giant Salesforce. And so, Nick, you want to just kind of talk a little bit about Salesforce and the story? I think most people know it, but let's give it an introduction like we have in the past with the other integrations we've done.
Sure, absolutely. So like you said, Salesforce is a huge platform. I'd be surprised if many people haven't at least heard of it. It was really one of the very first SaaS products out there. It was founded in 1999, I think. So it's been around for quite a while, and it's massive. And they've been gobbling up all kinds of other platforms. In fact, Tableau, which we spoke about a few weeks ago, is now owned by Salesforce, or it's been owned by them for a few years. Same with Slack, an enormously popular platform owned by Salesforce. Heroku is a developer kind of platforming or hosting service. It's owned by Salesforce. MuleSoft is owned by them. So it's huge, and so it's impossible to kind of understate the size and the wide breadth of services that Salesforce offers.
Correct. And you made a joke before this webinar or podcast. You didn't realize that Salesforce was started in 1999. And I told you, I remember because I was one of the first customers back in 1999. They had a deal. They said it was 10 users for free for the first year. And then they hooked everyone, of course, just like that. And so it became one of the largest CRM platforms originally. But as we all know now, there's a lot of modules. You can run your whole business on Salesforce. They've acquired a lot of these analytic tools. And hence, that's kind of why we're talking about it today, because I think what we're going to show off and what we're going to introduce, especially for the folks that have never heard of Rocket Screens, is Rocket Screens was initially started off in a, I guess, digital signage platform approach to sharing data, right? And we've gone beyond just TVs in the office now, but ultimately our charter, our belief is that a lot of companies have a lot of technology with a lot of information built into it, but they have a hard time getting that information packaged into their staff, in some cases their partners and maybe even customers. But our motto and our objective, right, again, is to help them simplify those connections and get that information, the visual information, not the data per se, but the visual information in a package that can be pushed wherever the staff reside, right? And so we'll talk more about that, show that off. But our today is we're going to show how we do that with the Salesforce platform. It's pretty cool. And again, like everything we want to do is very secure. This is critical, mission critical information a lot of times. I also have a lot of CEO friends of mine that own small businesses. They use Salesforce. And the number one request that they told me with Rocket Screens is, Scott, I would love to have my sales dashboards, my numbers, my call volume, whatever, really kind of projected, not only sales management, but to the individual sales folks in somewhat of a compete scenario, gamification, just even a knowledge, how we doing today, right? And so a lot of companies use Salesforce to store that, but getting it out kind of real time in everyone's purview is a powerful thing, and that's kind of what we're going to show off today, how we do that. You want to take it from there, Nick, and show off maybe some of the product, and go right into how this is a technical integration today, right? That we're going to show off, but ultimately it demonstrates the level of security and in some respects even the ease once it's set up, what we can do. So I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And you're totally right. This is by far, out of all the connectors that we have, the most complex to set up. The good news is that it's a one-time. The complexity is just a one-time thing. Just get it set up, get the services talking to each other, and then smooth sailing from there. But you're right. We try to do these integrations in the most secure way as possible. And Salesforce can be a bit tricky to get these kind of the information out of it in a secure way, and make sure that it keeps that kind of that respect towards your security. But we think we found a way to do it, and we're very pleased with the outcome. In fact, I think, as far as I'm aware, we're the only digital signage platform that offers this. So I'm really excited to show it off. So this is, of course, about Salesforce again, salesforce.com. Again, massive product. I would expect most people to have heard of this. And before I go and show you what it looks like in RocketScreens, let's check out Salesforce first and look at this setup a little bit.
Awesome.
If you're not a Salesforce administrator or a system administrator, then it might be a little bit over your head, but that's okay. We just want to kind of show off at a high level how everything is set up, how they talk to each other, the things that you'll need to get this working. So the first thing that we need is a RocketScreens dedicated user. What happens is, behind the scenes, we use this user to talk to Salesforce and go get the data that we need and kind of manage most of it. And so I have a few users in here in my development environments. Of course, a lot of them are for development and testing purposes, but it works the same in any production environments. But by and large, we have a user that's set to active, so they are an active user. We have their name as RocketScreens. It can be anything really arbitrary. Same with the username. However, the important thing is that this email here is a specific email, and during the setup process, we provide this to you. But by and large, we'll tell you this is what the email needs to be. And that's so that when our system talks to your system, we know exactly what we're looking for. Of course, a user needs a set of permissions, right? In Salesforce, those are called profiles. We also need a RocketScreens profile for this user. So on this next tab, I'm looking at a RocketScreens profile. And this user doesn't need a lot, but they need a few critical things. One is the name needs to be RocketScreens. And of course, that's usually not a big deal. It just needs to be case sensitive, rockets with a capital R, screens with a capital S, but still one word. And that's just, again, so our system knows kind of what we're looking for. We know that it's there and that these permissions are set up correctly before we start poking and prodding around. But specifically, what this user will need, the permissions, are view dashboards and public folders, and scrolling down a little bit more, run reports, and finally, view my team's dashboards.
So what you're showing off here is, again, we're in our dev Salesforce environment, but you've created a user, you named it RocketScreens, you put some information in where you'll show her how you get that information, and you've created a security profile now, which is another requirement, and you've obviously checked those areas that are required for our system to talk to the Salesforce system.
Right, because our system will be using this RocketScreens user behind the scenes. So we need to tell that user what they're allowed to do. And at minimum, we are going to look for your dashboards and then run those dashboards.
Awesome.
There could be other things that you may want to use them for, but by and large, you want to keep the permissions as limited as possible for these types of users. And so that's all that they can do. For example, the user can't go in and delete any dashboards. It's not possible.
Obviously it's a paid user in Salesforce. And so these are the permissions. So like you could have permissions like an administrator or whatnot. These permissions are the profile are the ones that you've recommended today.
Correct. Yep. And as you see, when I'm scrolling through, there are hundreds of different options. So,
Yes.
and this is all unique to your environment. So this isn't, we're not saying these are permissions that we're kind of dictating for you to match ours. Saying this is your environment. We need these 3. If you want other kind of over your require whatever else in your system, you can go ahead and type those on too.
Perfect.
And one of the last things that we'll need is there's a special field here called login IP ranges. Basically, where do you trust this user to log in from? And we'll need to give you an IP address. So whether you're on a multi-tenant environment or a single tenant environment, which we provide for some enterprise customers, if you're interested, we'll need to give you an IP address to say, this RocketScreens user is only going to be logging in from this IP address. That way, you're giving us permissions for this user, giving us permissions to log in with them, and we're saying we're only going to allow them to log in from this IP address, so you know that it's only us logging in as that user from this place. Again, really locking down who can get in as this user and what they can do, just for improved security.
Perfect.
So with the RocketScreens user set up, again, we'll use that in the background, but we don't want to ask for the RocketScreens username and password. So that's kind of one setup, is getting the RocketScreens user set up. The second process is getting a OAuth app set up in Salesforce. And what that'll let us do is let a user in Salesforce, your own user, connect to RocketScreens, and then that user will manage the RocketScreens user. It's a little weird how that's set up, but again, it's all in the interest for security.
Well, that's why we're all NASA scientists, Nick. So thank you.
So I have this RocketScreens app set up here, this OAuth app. Very similar to the user. We'll tell you everything you need to put into these fields. But for example, these callback URLs are something that's required. I have a few of them here because, again, this is a development and a testing environment. But we would say when you go through this process, we'll say just drop this field into this text box. So it's pretty easy to set up. And then you need to check this required security for web server flow checkbox. And then finally, this OAuth app, you give certain permissions to your users when they talk to this OAuth app. We need specifically 2 permissions. One is manage user data via APIs. So basically let this user do API calls and then perform requests at any time. And that allows us to be able to, once the user is integrated, be able to refresh the dashboard without someone having to log in every so often. And really just make sure your data is up to date.
Awesome.
So when that app gets set up, it's going to give you 2 fields, the consumer key and the consumer secret. That's what RocketScreens will need when we get there in just a few minutes. But that's all the setup on the Salesforce side. We still need to get to tie these fields into RocketScreens, but as far as Salesforce goes, that's because this is it.
So an active user, a profile, which is basically settings, and then you've created a connected app for security, the OAuth connection back and forth. Those are the 3 things that you set up on the Salesforce application side.
Correct. Yep, absolutely correct. So with that, I'll show you the dashboard that we want to try to get out of Salesforce. Here it is here, our lead flow dashboard. Again, it's just a sample example dashboard that Salesforce provides. So it's not super pretty or anything, doesn't have a lot of dense data on it, but it'll work for our purposes. So now let's go over to RocketScreens. So just like how we have with our other apps, we're going to start out on the integrations tab. You see I have a bunch of my integrations here. I'll click add integration. We have all of our integration options here. We'll find Salesforce, it's here towards the bottom. I'll click it. We have some really simple, small instructions here. But really, we just want to click integrate. So at this point, we are now into a page where we need to configure our Salesforce environment with our RocketScreens environment. And this is where the one-time setup is finally coming to a close. So we'll click Add Configuration. This will be my dev environment, so I'm just going to leave that as dev. It's going to ask for my app domain. I know from experience that it's this one right here. A quick aside is when you use the Lightning URL, that's not really your Salesforce domain. You want the Salesforce URL. If you put in the Lightning one, we'll do our best to change it over to the right one, but just to try to avoid any issues before they get there. And then we'll need our key and our secret. So I'll copy your key, and go back over, and then I'll copy our secret.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
This app will be deleted after this. Don't get any wise ideas. But remember, in those few places I said these are some things that we will give you. This is really what we'll give you. We'll give you your workspace identifier, and we'll say, take this, you'll drop it in as part of the email. Take it, you'll drop it in as part of the callback URL. You'll use it in a few places. But we also have an extra option we can set here, which we create the user automatically. If you want us to, the user that's signing up or connecting to our app will have to have permissions to create users, obviously. But if you want us to just bootstrap it ourselves, you're more than welcome to do that as well.
Awesome.
So I'll click Submit, and our environment is set up now with Salesforce. So that's the end of the one-time setup process. There's some more kind of customization you can do in there, but by and large, we are now set with Salesforce and RocketScreens to talk to each other. Now we can continue doing or integrating our users and then pulling in our dashboards. So I'll go ahead and continue the OAuth process by selecting this environment. If you notice here, it's asking for my for these permissions that we asked. Remember, we asked for the API access and perform the request at any time, so we can allow this or deny it. Really, any other OAuth system would give you the same kind of window. But something I do want to call out is I'm using my npaget at usanalytics.com account. Again, this is not the RocketScreens user. We use the RocketScreens user behind the scenes, but right now I'm Salesforce is saying, do you trust RocketScreens to log in as you to do the management? And so I'll talk more about what that user is going to be doing, but we'll get there in a second. I'll click Allow. And our Salesforce account is connected to RocketScreens. Fantastic. Let's go back to RocketScreens.
So now what we have is we basically built a one-time integration that lives forever between RocketScreens, not forever, but it lives, and we don't have to reconnect that over and over again. Now we have this live API connection between RocketScreens and Salesforce established.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like all of Salesforce. It's your specific environment that you set up those permissions in with.
Thank you.
So now with the integration, you see here I have the dev/npaget, right? Remember my account that we hooked up. I'll go over to channels, and we have a Salesforce test channel that we have set up. And then here I'll search for Salesforce. Again, like always, we have some default options. I'll leave these all as the defaults for now. Here I select my Salesforce integration, so I'll use the one that we just set up. And then I select my dashboard.
So now that's actually entering inside Salesforce and finding the list of dashboards and reports that have been built in Salesforce because that integration now is live.
Correct. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
And again, we're using the npaget account. This is my user that's going in saying, what reports do I have access to? And so we click them, we click next. Let's turn on our QR codes in our last refresh label. And I'll click create. So similar to last time, we'll give this a second to process. But in the meantime, we can set up a player just like how we normally would on desktop. And then we'll bring it up and show it. But while it's processing, I do want to say a few things that it's doing. So remember, we set up the RocketScreens user, and we connected with OAuth through my user. What's happening is my user is it's generating a new password for the RocketScreens user, and using that password to go log in and look at your dashboard and capture it. So what's actually happening is we're using the RocketScreens user almost like a one-time password or one-time token to get into your report. And we're not saving that password, we generate it and we throw it away. And that's why we're using these two users. We're using your OAuth user, which my particular user has permissions to manage this user, create new passwords for them. That's what it's doing. Again, making the new password, logging in, capturing it, throwing the password away. That way, our system doesn't have to deal with any of these passwords. Of course, we keep the same security that we already looked at in Salesforce. And so it's just another way for us to, again, improve security.
So we provided that secure integration, and we don't really have passwords or whatnot. It's long, and ultimately, if you go in and try to edit that integration, does that affect that integration? And so in essence, it has to be someone with authority would have to go back in and make changes to that integration. Is that true?
Changes in what way?
Well, ultimately, again, we're trying to build the most secure connection we can, right? So what you're saying is, when we establish that, we don't know your password.
Oh, correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, correct. And in all of these cases, we don't know your password. So OAuth, the whole idea of creating this consumer secret, consumer key, and me signing in and Salesforce saying, do you trust RocketScreens? The whole idea of that is that you're not sharing my password with me, but I can do some things on your behalf. And now we're forcing the same kind of behavior by just randomly making some arbitrary password, setting it to this user and using it, but then throwing it in the trash. So yeah, you're exactly right. You'll never know any of these passwords for your user, for RocketScreens user, for any of it.
Awesome.
So with that, let's go create a player. It should be done processing. I'll click create player here. We'll do a desktop player, just like last time with demo. And let me turn it on so we can get our registration key. So here's my desktop player. Again, the process is identical with whether you have a desktop or a actual player like a Fire Stick or Android device. I'll copy the code to my clipboard. Salesforce demo, be the name, catches up, there we go. And I'll set the channel for the one that was created, the Salesforce test. Okay. Of course, we're always working on some things, so they're, it's not going to work perfectly every time, and it wouldn't be a good demo if things went perfect.
No, it wouldn't.
Well, let's go here anyways. We can still preview what's going on here. So here's the Salesforce dashboard that we captured that we would have seen in that player show up. So you see it's identical to the live environment when you go and log in. We just kind of cleaned it up a little bit to make best use of the space on the screen.
So this is a preview, right? Because we have a preview capability in the channel you built, which again, the channel consists of slides. You have one slide in there, which is this Salesforce dashboard. And then we can, at the bottom corner, we've got a QR code and we have a timestamp when that image was taken, right, of the report. I'm not sure if you turned on the scrolling feature, but if a lot of times the first time it doesn't scroll because it's still processing, but then eventually some of these reports or dashboards are really long, so it'll scroll that whole report. And you can choose, again, in this case, it's a preview. You can choose how the length of the display. So if you wanted to play this constantly or, for 2 minutes and go on to another slide type, maybe another report, you can. But this is an example of your live. Well, it was actually 5 minutes ago live, right? Report that was in the system. Now, if I wanted to create another report or dashboard in this playlist or in this channel, excuse me, how would I do that?
Sure. So you would go back to the channel just like how we have here, and let's find, let's say, the weather. You would either search for it in here, or if you're just kind of browsing and looking for something to put in there, this full list right here, you can just scroll through and find anything that captures your attention.
But in the case if I wanted to have two Salesforce reports back to back, I would just go and add Salesforce again, the app again, to the channel. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. There's you can add in any of these types. There's no restriction on what type you do. Like you said, you can set the duration for it, and then as long as you add another one in there, then they'll just go back and forth for the duration for each one of them that's specified.
Can you go in and show off again slowly the different types of current applications that we have? I think we're almost close to 100.
Absolutely.
And again, part of the value proposition that we believe the RocketScreens product offers management primarily. This is a push technology, right? There's not as much integration as like a Teams or whatever, or email. Our whole intent is that management's designed or devised, different reports, information that they want to share, and they want staff to understand to run their business, right? Performance management. And so with that said, we've spent a lot of time and a lot of money building out these. For the most part, a lot of them are SaaS connections. And so we know for a fact a lot of companies who own Salesforce maybe also own Power BI or other, they want PowerPoint slides or various other items, PDFs, and then not to get in front of their Salesforce or their marketing teams, whatever. And so we know not everything's in Salesforce, like we know not everything's in Microsoft. And so this is our ability to kind of blend, if you will, the different applications for your sales team or for your marketing or your operations team, or if you want to, if you have a floor, operations floor, what does it make sense for that audience to see? And so with that, we can really craft any sort of message or any sort of information depending on what department they're in. And that's what we're showing off here. And so again, this channel can be comprised of all these other elements that we would want to get, and we can name this off. We can build another channel. Again, it could be to a different group or a different purpose for whatever. And so ultimately, we're able to organize that information and get it to staff in a very quick way without having to log into all these systems, saving them a lot of time, possibly a lot of money, and really lowering the stress and making sure people are actually doing what I'm afraid a lot of people aren't doing is no one's looking at a lot of these reports that the management feel are critical to success, to hitting the results these companies are expecting. And ultimately, partially, it's because it's just so complicated and time consuming. Right? I mean, single sign-off is one thing, but I forgot my password. I can't go in, or it's getting late in the day. You can play these channels all day long if you like, a couple times a day if you like, right? So very good. So awesome. Well, I appreciate you showing off ultimately our new connector. It's in beta right now, but we obviously can have folks try it out. Can you let everyone know how they would get a trial of RocketScreens today, please, Nick?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's really easy. Go to RocketScreens.com. And when you go to RocketScreens.com, just click the free trial button up here at the top right. You're taken to a quick form to sign up, and you're done. It just takes 2 minutes at tops.
And so they sign up and they'll get 2 minutes access to the product, and they can ultimately go in and try it out with their own applications. And obviously we have a support line they can contact us if they need any help. But the idea is to see if this thing would fit your needs. We also are always looking for suggestions on other products to connect to. We connect to a lot of enterprise technologies, which is, again, kind of our unique place in the market. We're looking at bringing in Oracle systems. We mentioned Tableau, Power BI, Domo. We did a demo on Domo last week, and there's other advanced reporting systems that we know exist. And so our job really is to get all these to the management team so they can ultimately share this wealth of information they think is critical to run the business and succeed in their daily tasks to grow their organizations. So with that, Nick, I appreciate your time today. This was awesome. It looks great. And any closing words?
Well, number one, absolutely. I'm happy to show off, all the stuff. We're all super excited about it, and hopefully this makes a lot of customers happy. We know Salesforce is it's a big kicker for getting these reports out, and I think we really met that requirement. The only other thing I want to kind of circle back to really quickly is again the user that we have set up in Salesforce. My OAuth user is resetting the password for the RocketScreens user. That doesn't mean I have to be a system administrator. That's I just happen to be one. There's another feature in Salesforce called delegated administration, I believe. And what it is you can set up any user to be an administrator of another user. And so you can say, I want to you, Scott, you're not an admin in the system, but I want you to be an admin of this RocketScreens user. And so you can reset their password. And so you don't need a system admin to set all this up. You just need everything to be set up in the right way. But that was the only remaining item I just wanted to clarify.
Awesome. Kay, what do you think? Did you enjoy this?
Yes, it's perfect. I mean, I read that Salesforce has over 150,000 users, and 62% of those are located in the United States. So
Well,
there's a big market.
Yeah, fortunately, we are located in the United States also, so it's great. Not everyone is, Kay. Not everyone is. So we can help them also. Wonderful, guys. Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to next week's webinar presentation. We'll bring something great to bear and show off. But until then, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.